Captain Jiwan stretched in her command chair and looked out at the stars through the big window of her ship. The stars looked so peaceful and beautiful today. She had been flying through space for 15 years now, and she still loved watching. The tiny lights shine in the darkness. Her ship was called Star Dancer, and it was one of the nicest merchant ships in this part of the galaxy. The ship was carrying goods from the outer colonies back to Earth. They had medicine for sick people, art from talented alien artists, and some special foods that people on Earth really wanted to try. Jiwan loved her job because she got to meet so many different kinds of people and see amazing new places. Every trip was like a small adventure, but a safe one because nobody fought wars anymore. Her crew was sitting around the bridge doing their usual peaceful work. Minho was reading a book of poems while he waited for the next jump calculation. The poems were written by a famous writer from the planet Kepler 7, and they were supposed to be very beautiful. Minho read poetry every day because he said it made his mind calm and helped him think better about flying through. Spaceubin was taking care of her flower garden in what used to be the weapons room 3,000 years ago. This room would have been full of guns and missiles and dangerous things, but now it was full of pretty flowers from dozens of different worlds. Subin grew roses from Earthlila from New Tokyo and some strange purple flowers that glowed in the dark from a planet called Mistrith. Flowers made the whole ship smell wonderful, and everyone loved walking through Subin's garden when they had free time. She knew everything about plants and could make anything grow even in the cold darkness of space. Sometimes alien traders would come just to see her famous flower collection, and they would trade rare seeds for other. Goodchiuk was listening to music from different planets through his headphones. He collected songs and sounds from everywhere they visited. His computer had millions of different pieces of music from hundreds of different alien species. Some of the music sounded strange to human ears, but Hyok said every culture had something beautiful to share. The communication equipment was mostly quiet these days. The only messages they got were usually about trade deals or friendly greetings from other ships. Sometimes they would get news from home or updates about family and friends. Violence and war were so rare that most communication officers like Hyok spent their time learning about art and culture. Instead of watching for danger, Jiwan remembered learning about the old days in school when humans used to fight each other. And fight aliens too, but that was so long ago that it felt like ancient history, like reading about dinosaurs or cave people. Nobody alive had ever seen a real war, and most people could not even imagine what fighting would look like. The ship had traveled for 3 days without seeing anything dangerous or even slightly worrying. The biggest problem they had was when the coffee machine broke down. An engineer, Subin, had to fix it. Everyone was grumpy until they could have their morning coffee again, but even that small problem was solved quickly with lots of laughing and joking. That morning started exactly like every other morning for the past 3,000 years. Jiwan was reading reports about how much money they made on this trip and planning where they would go next. The reports showed they had done very well, and everyone would get a nice bonus when they got home. Minho was calculating the next jump to a system closer to Earth. They would arrive in 2 more days, and then everyone could see their families and rest for a while before the next trip. Subin was watering her flowers and humming a happy song. Her garden was growing so well that she was thinking about writing a book on how to grow plants, and Spaceship Shiok was organizing his music collection and deciding which new songs to share with the cultural exchange program on Earth. He had found some amazing wind music from a species that communicated through sounds like singing birds. The music was so beautiful that he thought people on Earth would love it. Everything was normal and peaceful and boring in the best possible way. Nobody was worried about anything more serious than whether they had enough food for the trip home or if the entertainment system had any new movies to watch. This was how life had been for so many years that people had forgotten any other way of living. Then everything changed in one moment that would be remembered forever. Hyok suddenly sat up straight in his chair, like someone had shocked him with electricity. His face went white as paper and his hands started shaking. The happy song he was humming stopped and the bridge became very quiet. Everyone noticed right away that something was wrong because nothing was ever wrong. In their peaceful world, Hyok pressed his earpiece deeper into his ear like he could not believe what he was hearing. His eyes got very wide and his mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked like someone who had seen a ghost or a monster. Ji-won had never seen anyone look so scared in her whole life. The other crew members stopped what they were doing and stared at Hyok. Something terrible must have happened, but nobody could imagine what could be terrible enough to make him look like that. In their world, the worst news was usually about someone getting sick or a ship having engine trouble. Ji-won stood up and walked over to Hyok, who was still listening to something on his earpiece. She put her hand on his shoulder and asked what was wrong, but Hyok just shook his head and kept listening. His hands were shaking so much he could barely hold the earpiece. Finally, Hyok turned around and looked at Ji-won and the rest of the crew. His voice was shaking when he spoke. The message he had received was being broadcast on all emergency channels across human space. An alien group calling themselves the Dominion had just declared war on all human worlds. The aliens said humans were too weak and peaceful to deserve their place in the galaxy. They demanded that all human colonies surrender immediately and accept alien rule. The Dominion had already attacked some outer settlements and they expected humans to give up without a fight because humans had been peaceful for so long. The alien message said they had been watching human space for many years, and they saw that humans had no weapons, no armies, and no way to defend themselves. The aliens thought 3,000 years of peace had made humans soft and helpless. Like sheep, the Dominion was confident they could conquer all human worlds in just a few weeks. But as Ji-won listened to the alien demands, something very strange happened inside her chest. Instead of feeling scared or worried, she felt something else. Starting to wake up, it was like a sleeping animal opening its eyes for the first time in thousands of years. Something ancient and powerful that had been waiting patiently for the right moment. She looked around at her crew and saw the same strange feeling in their eyes too. Minho put down his poetry book and for the first time looked like something other than a gentle dreamer. Subin came out of her flower garden with dirt on her hands, but her eyes had become hard like steel. They all felt it, the awakening of something that had been hidden so deep they had forgotten it existed. The peaceful life they had known was just the surface, and underneath was something much older and much more dangerous. The aliens had made a terrible mistake, and they were about to learn what humans were really like when someone threatened their familiars. Ji-won smiled for the first time since hearing the news, but it was not a nice, gentle smile. It was the smile of someone who had just remembered their favorite game. The news about the alien attack spread across human space faster than light itself. Within hours, every human colony, every space station, and every ship knew that someone had declared war on them. President Yoonji sat in her office on Earth looking at reports coming in from everywhere. People were calling meetings and asking questions, but something very strange was happening. Instead of panic or fear, the reports showed something unexpected. Humans everywhere were reacting the same way that Captain Ji-won's crew had reacted. Something was waking up inside people. Something that had been sleeping for 3,000 years was opening its eyes and stretching like a giant cat that had been napping for too long. Dr. Seung was one of the smartest people on Earth, and she studied alien life forms for her job. When she heard about the Dominion Declaration, she went straight to the old computer files that nobody had looked at for centuries. These files contained information about what humans used to be like before the Great Peace began. What she found in those files surprised even her. The records showed that humans had not always been peaceful traders and artists. Before the 3,000 years of peace, humans had been something completely different. They had been warriors and conquerors who had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The old records showed that human ships used to be feared everywhere they went. Alien species would hide when they saw human flags approaching. Human soldiers had been known for never giving up no matter how bad things looked. Human scientists had created weapons that could destroy entire planets if they wanted to, but the most surprising thing Dr. Seung found was why the peace had started. It was not because humans had learned to be nice or because they were afraid of war. The peace had started because humans had become so good at fighting that continuing to fight would have been unfair to everyone else. A great peace had been humanity's gift to the galaxy, a chance for other species to grow and develop without being conquered. The records showed that human leaders had decided to put away their weapons and pretend to be gentle because they were too powerful to keep fighting other Species needed time to catch up. While Dr. Sung was reading old files, the first alien attacks were hitting human colonies. The Dominion had chosen to attack New Bizen first because it was a farming world with no defenses the aliens expected to find. Scared farmers who would surrender immediately and beg for mercy instead. They found Daho, who had been growing vegetables that morning when the alien ships landed and started shooting. Daho did not run or hide. He got angry in a way that surprised even himself. Using tools from his farm, he started building weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Daho had never fought anyone in his life, but somehow he knew exactly what to do. His hands remembered how to make traps and bombs, even though his mind had never learned these things. Other farmers joined him, and within hours, they had destroyed 3 alien landing ships using nothing but farm equipment and pure human stubbornness. The aliens were confused. This was not supposed to happen. According to their intelligence, humans were supposed to be helpless. The Dominion had studied human behavior for decades, and everywhere they saw peace, art, music, and trade. They had never seen humans fight because humans had not fought. For 3,000 years on, the industrial world of Neo Soul factory worker, Minji was building civilian transport ships when she got the news about the invasion. She looked at her production line and suddenly understood that she could build something completely different instead. Within 6 hours, she had converted the entire factory to make weapons. The weapons Minji built were designs that came from somewhere deep in her memory. She had never seen blueprints for military equipment, but her hands knew how to build things that could hurt the aliens. Her workers helped her, and they all seemed to know exactly what they were doing, even though none of them had any military training. Similar things were happening on human worlds everywhere. People who had spent their lives making art or growing food or teaching children were suddenly building defenses and planning battles. They were doing things they had never learned and thinking thoughts they had never thought before the aliens attacking. Human colonies started sending confused reports back to their commanders. The humans were not surrendering. Instead, they were fighting back with weapons that seemed to come from nowhere and tactics that made no sense. Human civilians were acting like experienced soldiers. Young engineer Young Ho was working in the military archives on Earth, trying to understand what was happening to his people. He found files that had been sealed since the beginning of the Great Peace. When he opened them, he discovered the most shocking secret in human history. The files showed that the 3,000 years of peace had not been humanity's first time ruling the galaxy. Humans had controlled most of known space before and had voluntarily given up that control. The peaceful civilization that everyone knew was not humanity's natural state. It was humans taking a vacation. According to the ancient records, humans had once been so dominant that other species could not even imagine resisting them. Human technology had been thousands of years ahead of everyone else. Human military strategy had been so advanced that alien computers could not understand it, but humans had grown bored with being in charge. Managing other species had become tedious work that did not challenge them anymore, so human leaders had decided to pretend to be peaceful and let other species think they were running the galaxy themselves. The real human military technology had been hidden away but never destroyed. The real human knowledge had been stored in places where it would be safe but not forgotten. And most importantly, the real human fighting spirit had been passed down through genetics, waiting for the day when it would be needed again. As Young-ho read through more files, he realized that every human alive carried the memories of their warrior ancestors deep in their DNA. The peaceful farmers and artists and teachers were all descendants of people who had conquered the galaxy once they were threatened. Those ancient memories would start to surface. The second wave of Dominion attacks hit major trade routes, expecting to destroy human economy and force a quick surrender. But human merchant ships were not as helpless as they looked. Captain Junho had been carrying art supplies and medical equipment that morning. By afternoon, his ship bristled with weapons that seemed to appear from nowhere. The ship's computer had somehow remembered how to build military equipment, even though it had been programmed only for peaceful trade. The weapons were designs that no current alien species had ever seen before. They were based on principles that human ancestors had developed when they ruled the galaxy. What scared the aliens most was how easily humans adapted to war. One day they were peaceful, the next day They were implementing battle strategies that alien military computers could not understand. There was no gradual learning period. No time needed to remember how to fight. Humans were not learning to be warriors, they were remembering that they had always been warriors who had chosen to be peaceful. The difference was important, and the aliens were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake all across human space. The awakening continued. People who had lived gentle lives for decades were accessing knowledge they did not know they possessed. Artists were designing weapons. Scientists were creating new ways to destroy alien ships. Engineers were building defenses that seemed impossible. The Dominion had expected to fight farmers and traders. Instead, they found themselves fighting the descendants of the most dangerous species in galactic history, and those descendants were starting to remember exactly why their ancestors had been so feared. Admiral Nari walked into the war room deep beneath Earth for the first time in her life. Nobody had been in this room for 3,000 years, and thick dust covered everything. The air smelled old and forgotten, but when she turned on the lights, all the equipment came to life perfectly. Human technology had been built to last, even the tools of war they had hoped never to use. Again, the screens showed star maps and battle plans that had been created by her ancestors long ago. The computers contained strategies for fighting wars across entire galaxies and weapons designs that could destroy solar systems. But what amazed Admiral Nari most was how familiar everything seemed. Her hands knew which buttons to press, even though she had never seen this equipment before. Outside in space, the second wave of Dominion attacks was targeting human trade routes. The aliens believed that destroying human commerce would force a quick surrender. They had studied human society and concluded that humans cared more about money and trade than they did about fighting wars. Captain Junho was flying his cargo ship Peaceful Trader through one of the main shipping lanes when the alien fleet appeared. His ship was carrying art supplies, medical equipment, and gifts for children on distant colonies. The ship had no weapons and no armor because weapons had been unnecessary for 3,000 years. But when the alien ship started shooting, something extraordinary happened. The Peaceful Trader began to change. The cargo holds opened up and equipment started moving around by itself. The ship's computer systems activated programs that had been sleeping for millennia. Within an hour, the cargo ship had become a warship. Captain Jinho watched in amazement as his ship grew weapons that he had never seen before. The computer explained that every human ship had been built with hidden capabilities. Military technology had been disguised as civilian equipment, waiting for the day when it might be needed again. The art supplies turned out to be components for energy weapons. The medical equipment contained materials for building armor. The gifts for children were actually sophisticated targeting systems that could track enemy ships across vast distances. Everything had been designed to look peaceful while secretly being preparation for war. Engineer Suyang had spent her entire career designing beautiful space gardens and parks. She made places where people could enjoy nature. While traveling between the stars, her work was considered art, and she was famous throughout human space for creating the most beautiful green spaces in the galaxy. When the war began, Suyang looked at the asteroid belt near her home colony and saw something completely different. Instead of empty rocks floating in space, she saw the perfect place to build defenses. She began designing what she called a flower garden, but it was unlike any garden anyone had ever seen. Each asteroid became a trap disguised as a beautiful sculpture. The rocks were carved into amazing shapes that looked like art from a distance. But hidden inside each sculpture were weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The garden was so beautiful that alien commanders wanted to get closer to admire it. When Dominion ships entered Suyang's asteroid garden, they found themselves caught in the most elegant death trap ever created. The asteroids moved in patterns that looked like a dance but were actually a carefully planned military formation. The sculptures shot beams of energy that painted pretty patterns in space while destroying everything they touched. The alien commanders could not understand how the defenses worked. The weapons were too beautiful to be military equipment, but too deadly to be anything else. Human engineering had reached a level where art and warfare had become the same. Thingdiar Tehun was a civilian researcher who studied ancient human history as a hobby. He had always been fascinated by the old stories about the time before the Great Peace. Most People thought those stories were just myths and legends, but Taehun suspected they might be true. His research led him to archaeological sites on dozens of old human worlds, places where the first human colonies had been built thousands of years ago. What he found there changed everything he thought he knew about human history. The evidence showed that humans had not just been warriors in the past, they had been the rulers of most of the galaxy. Ancient ruins contained technology that was still more advanced than anything current alien civilizations could build. Human cities from thousands of years ago had defenses that could withstand attacks from entire star fleets. The old humans had not just been good at fighting, they had been impossibly good at everything. But the most shocking discovery was that the Great Peace had not been humanity's first period of galactic dominance. The evidence showed that humans had ruled the galaxy multiple times before. Each time they had grown bored with power and had voluntarily stepped down to let other species have a chance. The current peaceful period was not humanity's natural state, it was their vacation time between periods of active galactic management. Humans had not evolved past their aggressive nature. They had simply learned to control it so perfectly that they could turn it on and off whenever they wanted. As Dr. Taehun's discovery spread through human space, people began to understand what was really happening to them. The strange feelings and sudden knowledge were not new things, they were old things coming back. Human DNA contained the memories of dozens of previous galactic empires. Young humans who had never seen violence found themselves knowing military tactics that had been used to conquer entire star systems. Children who had grown up playing with peaceful toys suddenly understood how to build weapons that could crack planets in half. The awakening was not random or accidental, it was programmed into human genetics like a security system that activated when humans were threatened. After 3,000 years of peace, the threat detection system had finally found a real danger and was bringing humanity back online. The Dominion tried desperately to understand what had gone wrong with their invasion. Their intelligence had been perfect. Humans really had been peaceful for 3,000 years. They really had dismantled their militaries and turned their weapons into farm tools. The aliens had not misunderstood anything about human society. What they had misunderstood was human biology. The peaceful behavior was learned, but the capacity for war was built into human genes. The knowledge was stored but not lost. The weapons were hidden but not destroyed. Everything had been waiting for someone to make the mistake of threatening human families. The third wave of Dominion attacks targeted Earth itself, believing that striking the human homeworld would finally break human resistance. Instead, they discovered that Earth was not the peaceful garden planet it appeared to be. The entire planet was one enormous military base disguised as a nature-preserve. Captain Haeyun commanded the defense platforms around Earth, structures that the aliens had believed were scientific research stations. When the battle began, these research stations revealed their true nature as weapons, platforms capable of destroying entire invasion fleets. The platforms had been conducting research, but their main subject had been finding new and creative ways to eliminate threats to human civilization. 3,000 years of peaceful research had produced defensive technologies that alien science could not even recognize as weapons. But the most terrifying revelation for the Dominion was that humans were not using their full capabilities yet. Everything they had seen so far was just humans stretching and yawning as they woke up from their long nap. The real weapons, the real strategies, and the real human military were still sleeping. Admiral Nare looked at the readings from battles across human space and smiled. Human forces were operating at maybe 5% of their actual capabilities. They were treating the entire alien invasion as a mild inconvenience barely worth their attention. The gentle giants were waking up, and the galaxy was about to remember why they had chosen to sleep. The first time humans laughed at the alien invasion was during the Battle of Rim Station. Commander Giwan stood on the bridge watching the biggest Dominion fleet yet assembled approaching his position. The enemy had brought thousands of ships and weapons that could destroy entire moons. According to every military calculation in the galaxy, humanity should have been terrified. Instead, Commander Giwan did something that no alien military manual had prepared for. He activated every communication channel in the sector and started laughing. The sound echoed across space, reaching human colonies, planets, and ships throughout the region. It was not nervous laughter or crazy laughter. It was the laughter of someone who had just heard the funniest joke in the universe. The joke was simple. For 3,000 years, everyone in the galaxy had believed humans were peaceful because they were weak. The truth was exactly the opposite. Humans had been peaceful because they were so overwhelmingly powerful. That fighting had become boring. The aliens had just reminded humanity of their favorite game. Other human commanders heard Giwan's laughter and started laughing too. The sound spread from ship to ship and from station to station until humans across the entire sector were laughing at the same time. Captain Bora led her defense fleet into battle while her crew shared jokes over open communication channels. The aliens listened to human laughter with growing confusion. Their psychological warfare. Experts had prepared for every possible human emotional response. They had plans for dealing with human fear, anger, despair, and even determination. But nobody had considered what to do if humans found the invasion funny. Human pilots began treating space battles like entertainment. Captain Do-yun flew his fighter ship through enemy formations while providing commentary like a sports announcer. He described alien attack patterns as if they were dance moves and rated enemy explosions like fireworks displays. The Dominion commanders became increasingly frustrated as their most serious military operation turned into a comedy show for humanity. Human soldiers fought alien boarding parties while making jokes about alien fashion choices. Human engineers repaired battle damage while singing silly songs. Scientist Dong-yoon made a discovery that turned human humor into an actual weapon. The alien communication systems were designed for formal military protocols. When humans started broadcasting jokes, casual conversation, and recreational music during battles, it overloaded Dominion command networks. Alien computers could not process the idea that humans could be relaxed while fighting for their lives. The Dominion communication system tried to analyze every human transmission looking for hidden military codes but found only entertainment. The aliens began to suspect that human laughter was some kind of sophisticated psychological attack on the resort world of New Jeju. Civilian Yamin owned a luxury hotel that catered to wealthy tourists from across the galaxy. When the war began, he converted his hotel into a military base, but he kept the 5-star restaurant service running. His soldiers fought alien invaders during the day and enjoyed gourmet meals at night. Jamin treated the war like an extreme vacation experience for his guests. People came from other human worlds just to participate in battles while staying in comfortable hotel rooms. The gift shop sold souvenirs made from destroyed alien equipment, and the hotel spa offered relaxation treatments between combat missions. The contrast between human casual attitudes and alien desperation became psychologically devastating to Dominion morale. Enemy soldiers who survived battles with humans reported that their opponents seemed to be having fun. The humans acted like the invasion was an interesting hobby rather than a life or death struggle. What made humans laugh hardest was the aliens' complete misunderstanding of human nature. The Dominion had spent decades studying human peaceful civilization and had concluded that humans were naturally passive creatures who avoided conflict. They had missed the most obvious explanation for human success. A species does not spread across an entire galaxy and establish peaceful trade with hundreds of alien civilizations by being naturally passive. Humans had not survived and thrived by being gentle. They had survived by being the most adaptable and dangerous species in known space. The peaceful behavior that aliens had observed was not human nature, it was human choice. Humans had not lost their aggressive instincts. They had simply gained perfect control over them. The ability to turn violence on and off at will was what made humans truly terrifying. Human children began collecting fragments of destroyed alien weapons like souvenirs from a fun day at the beach. Artists created sculptures from wreckage of Dominion ships. Musicians composed symphonies inspired by the sounds of space battles. Teachers used alien invasion tactics as examples in mathematics classes. The entire human civilization was treating the most serious military threat in galactic history like an amusing distraction from their normally peaceful lives. But underneath the casual attitude was something far more dangerous than alien commanders realized. Humans were not taking the war lightly because they were overconfident. They were taking it lightly because they had already calculated the final outcome. The laughter was not mockery of alien military strength. It was appreciation for the irony of the situation after 3,000 years of wondering if they had grown too soft. Humanity had finally received proof that they were. Still, the most dangerous species in the galaxy, the Dominion, had done humans a favor by providing them with an opportunity to test their capabilities. The aliens had expected their invasion to be like previous galactic conquests where superior technology and numbers led to inevitable victory. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to improve with every battle. Human tactics became more creative, human weapons became more deadly, and human coordination became more perfect, Commander. Gawan's laughter had started something that the Dominion could not stop. Human amusement was spreading faster than their military advances. Every human victory was celebrated with more laughter. Every alien defeat was treated as entertainment. The Dominion began to realize that they were not fighting a military campaign. They were providing amusement for a species that had been bored for 3,000 years. The humans were not defending their civilization, they were enjoying their first interesting challenge in millennia. As the laughter echoed across human space, other alien species began to listen. Some of them remembered old stories about what humans used to be like before the Great Peace. The stories had seemed like myths, but now they were starting to sound like warnings. The galaxy was beginning to remember why humanity had been allowed to establish peaceful dominance. The reason was not that humans were naturally gentle. The reason was that when humans stopped being gentle, nothing in the universe could stand against them. And now, after 3,000 years of peace, the humans were laughing again. General Sun Ho descended deeper into the earth than any human had gone for 3,000 years. The elevators took him down through layers of rock and metal to vaults that existed far below the surface. These were places that had been sealed since the Great Peace began, and the access codes were numbers that humans remembered without understanding. The massive doors that protected these vaults were made from materials that current science could not identify. They opened when Sun Ho spoke. Passwords that had been passed down through generations of humans who never knew what the words meant. Inside the vaults was humanity's true heritage. Technology that made current alien science look like children playing with sticks and stones weapons. Engineer Kyung-soo followed General Sun Ho into the deepest vault and stared at devices that seemed to bend reality itself. These were not weapons built by the peaceful civilization that aliens had studied for decades. These were creations of humanity's previous galactic empire, built by ancestors who viewed the impossible as merely inconvenient. The weapons did not look dangerous. They looked like art objects or scientific instruments, but when Kyung-soo touched them, knowledge flowed into his mind, showing him what each device could do. Some could destroy entire star systems, others could move planets from one orbit to another. Still others could manipulate time itself, making battles end before they began. Dr. Young's research team made discoveries that changed everything they thought they knew about human technology. Every civilian device built during the past 3,000 years contained hidden military applications. The medical equipment that saved lives could be converted into biological weapons. The terraforming tools that created garden worlds could become planet-destroying machines. Even children's toys contained programming that could overwhelm alien computer systems. The peaceful technology that humans had shared with other species was actually a vast network of potential weapons disguised as helpful tools. Everything humans had built during their peaceful period had been preparation for the day when peace would end. The Dominion launched their largest attack yet directly at Earth itself. They brought their entire remaining fleet and weapons that had conquered dozens of other species. Their plan was to destroy the human homeworld and break humanity's spirit once and for all. Instead, they discovered that Earth was not what it appeared to be. The beautiful blue planet with its peaceful cities and nature preserves was actually the most heavily defended world in galactic history. Every mountain, every ocean, and every forest contained defensive systems that had been hidden for millennia. Captain Haeun commanded what aliens believed were scientific research platforms orbiting Earth. These structures had been studying space phenomena for thousands of years and seemed completely harmless. When the Dominion fleet approached these research stations, revealed their true nature as weapons platforms. The platforms had indeed been conducting research, but their primary subject had been warfare. They had spent 3,000 years developing new and improved ways to protect human civilization. The result was defensive technology so advanced that aliens could not even recognize it as military equipment. The battle for Earth lasted exactly 17 minutes. The entire Dominion attack fleet was destroyed by weapons that appeared to be decorative sculptures and research equipment. Not a single alien ship managed to fire a shot at the planet's surface. The Earth defenses eliminated the invasion force with such efficiency that human civilians barely noticed anything had happened. But the most shocking discovery came from archaeologist Chanwu, who had been studying the oldest human settlements. The evidence he found proved that the Great Peace had been a deliberate strategy. Humanity had not abandoned warfare because they had evolved beyond violence. They had stopped fighting because they had achieved such complete military superiority that maintaining it required no effort. The peaceful period had been a test the human leaders wanted to see if other species could develop enough to provide interesting challenges. If the galaxy remained peaceful, humans would continue their vacation. If someone threatened human civilization, the test would end and humanity would return to active management of galactic affairs. Human civilians across the galaxy began accessing genetic memories they did not know they possessed. Farmer Inwu found himself designing orbital bombardment patterns while working in his fields. Teacher Sunmi discovered she could break alien military codes using mathematical principles she taught to children. Artist Moonbyul began painting pictures that showed future battle outcomes with perfect accuracy. Her paintings were not predictions, they were battle plans stored in human genetic memory. Her art showed tactical scenarios that had been used to conquer entire galactic sectors thousands of years ago. The awakening was spreading to every human regardless of age or occupation. Elderly people who had lived their entire lives in peace suddenly remembered how to pilot warships. Children who had never seen violence could instinctively operate weapons that had not been used for centuries. The Dominion realized they were facing something unprecedented. In galactic history, they were not fighting the peaceful civilization they had studied. They were fighting the inheritors of an empire that had once ruled everything. The humans had not lost their capabilities, they had simply hidden them so well that they had almost forgotten them themselves. Ancient human technology began coming online across human space. Defensive systems that had been disguised as art installations revealed their true purpose. Civilian infrastructure transformed into military equipment faster than alien sensors could track. Museums opened secret rooms containing weapons that could destroy solar systems. The arsenal was not just technology and weapons, it was a way of thinking that transformed every human into a strategic genius. The peaceful farmers and artists and teachers were revealed to be the descendants of the most successful military commanders in galactic history. What terrified the aliens most was that humans were still not using their full capabilities. The ancient weapons were being operated by people who had just remembered they existed. The real human military machine had not even started up yet. Everything the Dominion had faced was just humanity stretching and testing their muscle supreme. Commander Vextel of the Dominion reviewed battle reports that made no sense according to any known military science. Human forces had destroyed his most powerful fleets using weapons that his scientists insisted were impossible. The humans seemed to have access to physics that other species had not discovered, but the worst part was the attitude of human forces. They continued to treat the entire war as entertainment, even while operating weapons that could crack planets the humans maintained. Their casual friendly behavior, they acted like they were playing a game with particularly interesting rules. The ancient arsenal was awakening, and with it the full power of human civilization. The galaxy was about to learn why other species had been content to let humans manage galactic affairs. The alternative to human peace was human war, and that was something no sane species wanted to experience. General Sun Ho stood in the ancient command center watching displays that showed the true extent of human defensive capability. The numbers were so large that they seemed meaningless. Humanity could defend against threats that did not yet exist using weapons that redefined what warfare meant. The gentle giants were fully awake now, and they were remembering why they had chosen to sleep. The galaxy was big enough for everyone. but only if everyone understood who was really in charge. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a conversation. Supreme Commander Vextal of the Dominion requested an urgent meeting with human leadership. He expected to find himself in a formal military command center negotiating with stern-faced generals and admirals. Instead, he was led to what appeared to be a comfortable coffee shop on Earth. President Yunji sat across from him at a small table, offering him tea and asking about his family while casually discussing the terms of his species. Survival. The contrast was more unsettling than any weapon or threat could have been. Here was the leader of the most powerful military force in galactic history, treating him like a neighbor who had dropped by for a friendly chat. Commander Vextal had come prepared to negotiate a peace treaty between equal powers. He had authority to offer territorial concessions, resource-sharing agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Instead, he discovered that humanity had been treating his entire invasion as a minor training exercise. President Yunji showed him casualty reports that made his head spin. The Dominion had lost millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, and their entire invasion fleet. Humanity had lost exactly 0 military personnel, and had suffered property damage so minimal that insurance companies were treating it as a paperwork error. The human military had been operating at approximately 5% of their actual capabilities. The peaceful civilization that aliens had observed and attacked was real, but it was simply humanity's retirement hobby. The Dominion had declared war on a species that was taking a 3,000-year vacation from galactic conquest. Admiral Nari arrived at the coffee shop with historical records that changed Vextal's understanding of everything. The previous galactic confederation that had ruled before the Great Peace had not collapsed due to wars or natural disasters. It had been voluntarily dissolved by humanity when managing other species. Became tediously boring. The current peaceful galactic order was not the result of natural evolution or diplomatic progress. It was humanity's gift to other species, a chance to develop and grow without being conquered. The Great Peace had been humanity, giving everyone else time to become interesting enough to be worth talking to. The Arsung presented evidence that explained why the Dominion invasion had been doomed from the start. Humans had not stopped fighting because they had evolved past aggression. They had stopped because they had become so overwhelmingly good at warfare that continuing to fight would have meant accidentally conquering everything. The 3,000-year vacation had been humanity's way of preventing the complete domination of galactic civilization. Other species needed time to develop their own cultures, technologies, and military capabilities. Without that development time, the galaxy would have become a very boring place for humans. Commander Vextal listened to explanations that redefined everything he thought he knew about galactic history. Human peace was not weakness, it was the ultimate expression of strength. Only a species with unlimited military capability could afford to be genuinely gentle. The Dominion faced a choice that no previous galactic power had ever confronted. They could continue their hopeless war against a species that was treating their best efforts as entertainment, or they could accept humanity's offer to return to peaceful coexistence. The offer came with one simple condition: the Dominion and all other species had to acknowledge that human peaceful behavior was a choice, not a limitation. Humanity would continue to be gentle and helpful, but everyone needed to understand that this gentleness was backed by the capacity to end any threat instantly. Commander Vextal made the decision that saved his civilization. He formally surrendered not just his military forces, but his species' claim to galactic dominance. In return, humanity offered something that no previous galactic empire had ever provided: genuine partnership instead of conquest. The surrender ceremony took place in the same coffee shop where the negotiations had begun. Vextal signed documents that acknowledged human supremacy, while President Yunji served cake and talked about establishing cultural exchange programs. The casual atmosphere made the moment even more significant. Humanity offered to share their technology, knowledge, and protection with any species that wanted partnership. The only requirement was understanding that human kindness was voluntary. Human civilization would protect and help other species because they chose to, not because they had to. The new peace that emerged from the war was completely different from the old one. Before, other species had believed humans were peaceful because they were harmless. Now everyone understood that humans were peaceful because they were too dangerous for peace to be anything other than their gift to the galaxy. This understanding created a stability that no previous galactic order had achieved. When everyone knows that the gentle species next door could accidentally destroy your entire civilization if they sneeze too hard, diplomacy becomes much more polite and productive. Captain Jiwan returned to her merchant ship, but now the Star Dancer carried a different kind of cargo. Along with art and medical supplies, she transported the knowledge that humanity had proven something important to themselves after 3,000 years of wondering. If they had grown soft, they had discovered they remained exactly what they had always been. The most dangerous species in the galaxy had chosen to be gentle because they could afford to be kind. Their strength was so absolute that they could dedicate themselves to peace, art, culture, and helping other species develop without worrying about threats to their own survival. The laughter that had begun during the war continued long after peace returned. Humans still found it amusing that anyone had mistaken their vacation for weakness. But now their laughter was shared by former enemies, who had learned that the safest place in the galaxy was under human protection. The joke had become a shared one in a universe full of predators and dangers. The most dangerous species had chosen to be everyone's guardian. The Dominion and other alien species began to appreciate the irony of the situation. They had tried to conquer their own protectors. Human children grew up learning about the war as a reminder of what they were capable of when necessary. But they also learned that strength without kindness was meaningless. The greatest achievement of human civilization was not their military power, but their choice to use that power to protect rather than dominate. The galaxy settled into a new era of peace based on understanding rather than ignorance. Everyone knew that humanity could end any threat, but everyone also knew that humanity preferred to help threats become friends. Instead, the result was genuine cooperation instead of fear-based submission. Years later, when alien children asked their parents about the war, they were told a simple truth: humans had taught the galaxy that true strength meant having the power to destroy everything and choosing instead to help everything grow. The stars looked the same as they had before the war, but everything had changed. The peace was no longer fragile or temporary. It was backed by the absolute certainty that humanity would protect it not through conquest, but through the gentle application of unlimited power. And in coffee shops across the galaxy, former enemies sat together sharing tea and laughing about the time someone had been foolish enough to declare war on the species that had invented peace.